Right, great. So let's have a look at discipline. Now, discipline in any kind of company has to be progressive in the sense that you have tried everything you possibly could to retain that person. So in South Africa, you really do need to prove. The labor law is definitely on the employee side, but as the employer, you've got to prove that you've done everything you possibly can to keep that person in your company. So there are three ways in which you're going to look at this progressive approach. The first is you're going to look at coaching this employee. For whatever reason, whatever's happening, you're going to sit down and you're going to say, look, this is what you're good at. However, I feel that this is where you need improvement. I'm going to help you in the sense to navigate and point into the right direction in terms of what you've got to do. You are then going to counsel this person, which kind of goes a little bit more with coaching, and give them a plan of action. This has to be done at this time. This is what I'm expecting from you for this task. If that still is not working, you then go into correction. And that is where you have verbal warnings, written warnings. You could be suspending the person, demoting them, or finally into a dismissal. So it's very important that as a manager, you give yourself a job description. Do you remember we did job description before? Because you have to know what is expected of you so that you don't go through this progressive approach with your manager. So a company must have a disciplinary policy. The policy must have guidelines, the standards set by the company, and the consequences if you do not abide by these rules. So a discipline policy is the rules, and every company has it, and you would then have to sign that you have read it and you understand it, and your signature is then stating that you are familiar with the rules of. A grievance policy must also be given through to a new employee so that you know exactly the line that you need to follow if you do have a grievance, if you are unhappy about something. I worked in a company once where the person that had just joined, and she was quite junior, emailed through the to the CEO. So she didn't have a very long stay at the company. You don't do that. You've got to follow the procedures. So you've got an issue. So I'm a petrol attendant. I've got an issue. I'm going through to my line manager. From my line manager, if it's still not being resolved, I'm then going to move it through to my HR manager at head office, for example. If there's no such thing as that, if the grievance policy in a petrol station is your supervisor and the owner, then that's what it is going to be. But generally, you've got your supervisor, CCMA, so that's your conciliation of mediation arbitration. Then you go to labor court, and then you go to your labor appeal court. Okay, so there are ways in which you can dismiss someone. In South Africa, like we've taken the progressive approach in the sense that you've got to do a whole lot of things before, but there are two types of fairness that you have to prove as the employer that you have abided by. And that is substantive fairness. So it needs to be substantively fair that you have dismissed this person, and procedurally fair that you have. So substantive fairness has three main headings for someone to be able to be dismissed. The first one is incapacity. So incapacity is where the person is not able to do the job. They do not have the skill set. They could be very lazy. It could be that the person actually just doesn't know how to do the job. Before you can substantively dismiss that person, you need to ensure that the work standard is fair and that you have offered support. You could even possibly do a demotion. So say it was a manager position, say, listen, you are, as the regional sales manager, you're not performing very well. We can demote you to a sales father, and obviously your salary would also be affected. And you can kind of try and take steps so that they can progressively grow up again. You would also then, sorry, it's my dogs. You would also then look at maybe doing a transfer. Okay. Incapacity is where you can't do the job because you don't have the skill. Incapacity also means that you are unable to do the job because you are sick. You'll get very ill. and you can't just dismiss someone. So you need to take some steps before you dismiss this person, if that is inevitably what's going to happen. You're going to look at modifying tasks. You're going to maybe look at extended unpaid leave for them to say, you know what, take 6 months, get better, your job will still be here. Or you're going to look at maybe transferring them into some other kind of job. So for your petrol attendant, if the petrol attendant is very sickly and they can't be physical, you could possibly say, you know, let's move you into cashier, let's train you up. You can be a cashier that you're not so, you don't have to move around too much. So that is incapacity. That's how you can fire someone. They don't, or they're too ill to do the job. Misconduct. Misconduct feeds into your discipline policy, and that is not abiding by the rules of the company. So, like anywhere, if you don't abide by the rules, there are consequences to this, and you can be dismissed. So, let me give you some examples of misconduct. If your petrol attendant or your cashier stole something from the store, they come to work and they're drunk. They've been drinking alcohol. They try to bribe the person that's filling up with petrol, saying to them, you know what, pay me cash for this oil and I'll put oil in your car. That's bribery and stealing and theft. Okay, or there's fighting. Any one of those could be leading to dismissal. But for your misconduct, you can't just dismiss someone if they did not know about the rule. So that's why it's so important to have your policy. You have to prove that they contravened the rule, that they did in fact go against the rule that's been set, that it was a valid rule. It's not a rule that is a silly rule. There has been fairness. So there has been a policy. You've got your rules stuck up in the locker rooms. Whatever the case is, you need to show that there's been the rules have had to have some sort of awareness, even training on the rules, and you have people sign. The rule must be consistent. You can't allow the rule not to, to work for someone and not for someone else. It's just not going to work. You won't be able to fire them because it's not substantively fair. And that you have applied a sanction. You've done coaching, you've done counseling, you've done correction. Okay. Operational dismissal. Now that is something that's going to be very popular at the moment with COVID. And that is a lot of companies have an economic, they're in economic turmoil. They are not able to stay open anymore, or any kind of technological changes. So say, for example, in your petrol station, your pumps become fully automated. You're going to be losing a lot of people, and that would be an operational reason to dismiss that person. But that makes things substantively fair. Incapacity, misconduct, operational. And you have those 3 reasons why you can dismiss someone. To make it procedurally fair, let's have a look at incapacity and misconduct. What do you need to ensure to make sure that all the procedures, the paperwork has been followed? So the first is that if you've got a complaint, it is in writing. The full nature of the charge needs to be on this complaint. The time, the venue where everybody's going to be meeting, the prep time. You need to give them time to prepare for this case. Your employee is allowed an interpreter. The complainant, so the employer, will state the case first and will have all the evidence. The chairperson of this disciplinary hearing will decide whether the person is guilty or innocent and writing. And remember that your employee has the right to appeal. Okay. To make it procedurally fair in your operational side, where you are trying to dismiss someone from an operational point of view, you need to prove that you've taken all the steps to prevent this from happening, this restructure, or you've really tried to look at your business and say, how can we retain these people? So you need to prove that you've taken steps to do that. Your reasons must be valid. There must have been consultation with your employees. So you call everybody into a meeting and you say to them, our petrol station has not done well. We are looking to either close down or we restructure. So before we close down, we need to restructure, and therefore this is the criteria, that's your next step, the criteria by which we assessed who would be leaving. And sometimes people do FIFO is first in, first out. The person that was first in is first out, or last in, first out, depending on the criteria that you're looking at. You must give a notice period, so to say to them in 30 days we'll be closing for time. There's offers of severance pay, some sort of compensation, and then you could say to them, we will re-employ once our company is back on its feet and up and running, we can employ. The only thing I want to say is operational dismissal. If you're going through that and you're saying to people, we are restructuring, you cannot hire anybody else in the same time. We had that with one of the companies that I worked for, and we were going through this exact restructure, and we all had to reapply for our jobs. We had to send our CVs in and be re-interviewed, and I'd been working for the company for 3 years because there was a new manager coming on board. And one of my colleagues was on maternity leave, and they then said, you know what, because of the restructure, there's no more a need for you, and we've closed down that department. But in the meantime, they'd hired someone else. She took them to CCMA, and she won. Okay, so you can't hire anybody else. We're going to look at unfair treatment. What constitutes as unfair treatment in a company where you as the employee can take your employer on and go to the CCMA, which we will cover in the next session. So if you're getting unfair benefits, your colleague is getting benefits and you're not getting the same benefits. Probation period, a very long probation period. Now, a probation is there to safeguard both the employee and the employer. The probation period, in my experience with the companies that I've worked for, has been 3 months. And that is the period within which if I'm not happy, I can leave with, instead of giving a month's notice, I can give a week's notice or 24 hours, depending on how many days I've worked. And the same with the employer. Again, you have to prove this person hasn't got the skill set or is not going to fit in. So it really does help on both sides. However, if the probation period is very long, it's not fair to the employee because then you're always uncertain. So what will happen normally is after your probation period, your boss should call you in. And if they don't, you need to insist on that. But they then say, right, your 3-month probation period is done. We are very happy with this. This is what we found. This is what we think you could work on. Welcome to the team. And that's how it works. And then you are officially in the company, and you then have to give a month's notice if you want to leave. Unfair treatment is any kind of discrimination. So you're discriminating based on age, sex, race, whatever the case is. Unfair suspension, you just suspend someone without going through your substantive fairness and your procedural fairness. And then unfair treatment after whistleblowing. So whistleblowing, I know my grade 12s used to say snitches and stitches or something like that. Whistleblowing is very important for a company. So what it is, it's an anonymous telephone number that you can phone if you see something dodgy happening within the company. It's very important because it's a voice. If you see that there's corruption or if there's theft or anything like that, you can phone this number. You are completely anonymous and you can then say, look, I've seen something that's not right. And it can safeguard you even from any kind of harassment that you are going through at that time. Okay, but if your boss finds out and it's against him and then he treats you unfairly, well, that's a whole new ball. They need to take that on. And say you were dismissed, you would then take them to the CCMA, etc., etc. But we'll cover that next week. Unfair dismissal. What can constitute as unfair dismissal? Well, if you are in a protected strike, you cannot be dismissed. If you are pregnant, you cannot be dismissed. Any arbitrary factors, again, based on age, sex, race. And constructive dismissal is also constitutes as unfair dismissal. Now, I went through this in a company that I worked for, where my boss made it very difficult for me to work. It was an awful environment to work in, and I was so not happy in the sense that everything that I did was just, it just wasn't good enough. So then I always felt that I wasn't able to give to the team. So constructive dismissal is where your boss makes it so impossible for you to work there that you don't even want to step your foot into that office, that you actually then resign. And that's exactly what they were aiming for. The problem with constructive dismissal is I spoke to a lawyer and he said it is extremely difficult to prove constructive dismissal. You have to keep your paperwork because it's very much on hearsay. And sometimes, things can happen a little bit sneakily. But just understand, constructive dismissal is if your boss makes it so difficult for you to work there, makes it unpleasant that you resign. What are the remedies? Kind of unfair treatment or unfair dismissal. So what can the company do once they've gone through the procedural fairness? You know, you've gone through the hearing and all of that, and the chairperson now states the company's been found guilty. You can be reinstated, so you can get your job back. But that's tricky, because if you didn't have a very good relationship with your boss and you've taken him to this hearing, it's going to be very difficult to maintain a good working relationship. So reemployment, it depends on the situation if you want to actually be reemployed. The other option that they'll give you is compensation, where they're going to give you some monetary compensation and say, you know, here's 3 months worth of salary or whatever the case is. Or another remedy is they can do both. Great. Great, Charles. I hope that helped you. We are going to cover all our the rest of our labor relations in the next session. Have a fabulous day. Keep studying. Let me know if you need anything. It's Mrs. Latson with Better.